Life has a funny way of flipping the script when you least expect it. I'm Ella, an economist by profession. If you'd asked me a few years back, I would have said I had it all. A loving husband, Mark, a darling daughter, Laylee, and a cozy home that was all ours. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let me take you back to where it all began, to the days filled with hope and plans for the future. It was a lazy Sunday afternoon, the kind where the sun lazily peeks through the curtains, and the smell of fresh bread from Mark's bakery fills the air. Mark was in the kitchen, his hands covered in flour, a look of concentration on his face that always made me smile. "Hey Ella, can you grab the vanilla extract? It's on the top shelf," Mark called out, not looking up from his mixing bowl. I walked over to the pantry, reaching for the small bottle. "You know, you could put things where I can reach them," I teased, handing him the extract. Mark grinned, wiping his hands on his apron. "Where's the fun in that?" "I like it when you have to stretch," he said playfully. I rolled my eyes. "You're impossible, you know that." "That's why you married me," he quipped, turning back to his dough. Lily, our 6-year-old, was sprawled on the living room floor, her coloring books spread around her. She was humming a tune, completely engrossed in her artwork. "Mommy, look. I'm drawing a picture of our family," she said, waving me over. "That's fantastic, Lily. Speaking of the bakery, Mark, have you thought about what we discussed, about maybe expanding?" I asked, a bit hesitant. Mark's expression changed slightly, a frown forming on his forehead. "Ella, we've been over this. The bakery is doing just fine as it is. Why mess with a good thing? But we could do so much more, you know, for Lily's future and maybe even get that house we've been dreaming about." I pressed on. Mark sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know, Ella. I like the bakery the way it is, small, manageable. I don't want the headache of a bigger place." I felt a twinge of frustration but decided not to push it. Okay. I just think we should think bigger, that's all," Mark shrugged, a hint of irritation in his voice. "Maybe let's just enjoy today, okay? No more talk about expanding," he suggested. I nodded, not wanting to ruin the day. As the day wound down, I couldn't shake off a feeling of unease. Mark and I had always been a team, dreaming and planning together, but lately it felt like we were on different cages, especially when it came to ambition and our future. As days turned into weeks and weeks into months, the once light-hearted banter between Mark and me began to lose its charm. The bakery, once a symbol of our shared dreams, had become a stagnant reminder of what could have been but wasn't. I was busy climbing the ladder at my company while Mark seemed content with the status quo. That's when the first cracks started to show. One evening, I came home from a particularly grueling day at work, my mind swirling with numbers and projections. Mark was in the living room, feet propped up, scrolling through his phone. The bakery had closed early, and he hadn't bothered to pick up Lily from school. My mother had stepped in, as she often did these days. "Mark, you were supposed to pick up Lily today." "I had a meeting, and I couldn't make it," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Mark did look up. "Oh, was that today?" "I forgot," he replied casually. "Forgot? Mark, this is becoming a habit. You need to step up," I said, frustration creeping into my tone. Mark finally looked up, annoyance flashing in his eyes. I said, "I'm sorry, Ella. What more do you want?" "I'm not the only parent here," he retorted. I took a deep breath, trying to rein in my temper. "It's not just about picking up Lily, Mark. It's about us, about our future. Don't you think we should be doing more for her, for us?" Mark shrugged, an indifferent expression on his face. "We're doing fine, Ella. Why are you always pushing for more? Can't you just be happy with what we have?" I sat down, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. "I am happy, Mark, but I also want more for our daughter, for our family." "Is that so wrong?" Mark stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "You know what, Ella? I'm tired of this. Every day, the same lecture about wanting more. I'm going to my mom's." And just like that, he grabbed his keys and left, leaving me alone with my thoughts and a growing sense of dread. This wasn't the first time he'd run to his mother, Susan, whenever we had a disagreement. It was becoming his go-to move, and I was left to wonder where I stood in this marriage. The next day, I received a call from Susan, and her tone was anything but friendly. Ella, what's this I hear about you and Mark fighting again? You're pushing him too hard. He's happy with his bakery. Why can't you be? Susan's voice was sharp, accusatory. I clenched the phone tighter, trying to remain calm. Susan, I'm just thinking about our future, about Lily's future. Mark and I need to be on the same page. Well, maybe your page is the problem, Ella. You're always wanting more. Mark is a simple man, and you knew that when you married him, Susan retorted. I felt a flash of anger. Simple doesn't mean stagnant, Susan. I'm trying to build a better future for all of us. Susan scoffed. You're just being ungrateful and greedy. Mark is doing his best. You should appreciate that. The conversation ended shortly after with no resolution in sight. I hung up, feeling more alone than ever. Trouble hit like a freight train, and it hit hard. Mark's bakery, once the center of our small community, started to lose its charm and customers. Bills piled up, and the once cozy bakery felt more like a sinking ship. I was pulling extra hours at work, trying to keep us afloat, but it felt like bailing water out of a boat with a hole in it. One evening, I came home to find Mark slumped at the kitchen table, a stack of bills in front of him, his face a picture of defeat. Mark, what's going on? I asked, a sinking feeling in my stomach. He looked up, his eyes tired and red. The bakery, Ella. I can't keep it running anymore. We're bleeding money. My heart sank. What are we going to do? We have Lily to think about, I said, my voice trembling. Mark ran his hands through his hair, a gesture of frustration. I'd become all too familiar with I don't know, Ella. I really don't. I never thought it would come to this. I sat down beside him, trying to process the news. Well, maybe it's time to consider other options. You could look for a job, at least until we figure things out, I suggested. Mark's expression hardened. A job? What, and work for someone else? I'm a business owner, Ella, not some office drone. He retorted. I tried to keep my voice calm. Mark, this isn't about pride. It's about our family, about making ends meet. He stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. I don't need a lecture, Ella. I know what's at stake. And with that, he stormed out of the room, leaving me with a pile of unpaid bills and a head full of worries. The next day, I decided to talk to Susan, hoping she might be able to get through to Mark. I dialed her number, my hands shaking slightly. Susan, it's about the bakery. Mark's really struggling, and I think he needs to consider looking for a job, I said, trying to sound diplomatic. A job? My son is not going to work for someone else. He's a business owner, Ella. He's better than that, Susan snapped. I clenched my jaw, trying to keep my frustration in check. Susan, the bakery is closing. We have bills to pay, a daughter to raise. This isn't about being better than anything. It's about survival. Susan scoffed. Survival? You always exaggerate, Ella. Mark will figure it out. He doesn't need to stoop to being an employee. The conversation went nowhere, and I hung up feeling more helpless than ever. Mark's refusal to face reality, combined with Susan's delusional support, was a recipe for disaster. That night, Mark and I sat in silence, the tension between us thick enough to cut with a knife. I wanted to scream, to shout, to shake some sense into him, but I knew it would be pointless. The closure of the bakery brought more than just financial strain. It tore at the very fabric of our family life. Mark, once a bustling business owner, now spent his days idly lounging around the house. I'd come home exhausted from work, only to find dishes piled in the sink, laundry undone, and Lily left to her own devices. One evening, I arrived home later than usual, my head throbbing from a day crammed with meetings. The house was in disarray, and the sight of Mark on the couch, beer in hand, watching TV, was the last straw. Mark, what the hell? Look at this place. Can't you at least tidy up a bit? I snapped, my patience wearing thin. Mark looked up, unfazed. Oh, come on, Ella. I'm not your maid, and I had a rough day. I was flabbergasted. Rough day doing what, Mark? You've been sitting here all day. He shrugged, taking another swig of his beer. I'm dealing with stuff, okay? It's not easy losing your business. I threw my bag down, frustration boiling over. And you think it's easy for me, working all day to keep us afloat while you do nothing. Mark stood up, his face a mask of anger. I'm not doing nothing, Ella. I'm trying to figure things out. Figure what out, Mark? How to avoid responsibility. We have a daughter, for God's sake, I retorted, my voice rising. He shot back. Don't you think I know that? I don't need you nagging me every day. The argument escalated, with harsh words and accusations flying back and forth. Lily, hearing the commotion, came into the room, her eyes wide and scared. Mommy, Daddy, please stop yelling, she pleaded, her voice small and shaky. We both fell silent, the anger dissipating as we looked at our daughter. Mark muttered something under his breath and walked out, leaving me to comfort crying Lily. Lately, the days that followed were a blur of silent meals, curt exchanges, and an ever-widening gulf between us. I was struggling to keep it together, juggling work, household chores, and caring for Lily, while Mark seemed to retreat further into his shell. The tension in our house had become a constant, like some unwelcome guest who had overstayed their welcome. But nothing prepared me for what came next. It started with small amounts of cash disappearing from my purse. At first, I thought I was just being forgetful, but then the amounts grew larger. One evening, after noticing another missing $50, I confronted Mark. He was in the living room as usual, eyes glued to the TV. Mark, have you been taking money from my purse? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He didn't look at me. What? No, why would I do that? I felt a surge of anger. Because it's missing, Mark, and I know I didn't spend it. Mark finally turned to face me, his expression defensive. Look, I needed some cash, okay? It's not a big deal. I was incredulous. Not a big deal? It's stealing, Mark, from your own wife. He stood up, his voice rising. I don't mean a lecture, Ella. I took a bit of cash for beer. It's not like I'm blowing it on something stupid. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Beer? You're stealing money for beer while I'm working day and night to keep the family together? Mark's face hardened. Yeah, beer. It's not like I have much else to enjoy these days. I felt a mix of anger and sadness. That's your excuse. I'm out there busting my back, and you're here drinking away our money. Mark scoffed. Oh, please, you're always so dramatic. It's just a few bucks. I took a deep breath, trying to calm down. This isn't just about the money, Mark. It's about trust. How could I trust you if you're stealing from me? Mark didn't answer, just turned back to the TV, effectively ending the conversation. The next day, I made a decision. I called Susan to talk about the situation. It's about Mark. He's been taking money from my purse for beer. I said, trying to keep my emotions in check. Susan laughed, a harsh, grating sound. Oh, Ella, you're making a mountain out of a molehill. He's just having a tough time right now. I couldn't believe her response. Susan, he's stealing from me. How can you just brush that off? Susan's tone was dismissive. He's your husband, Ella. What's yours is his. Besides, it's just a bit of cash. I felt a flash of anger. Just a bit of cash? That's not the point, Susan. He's not contributing anything, and now he's taking what little we have left. Susan was unyielding. Well, I don't see the problem. He needs to unwind. You're being too hard on him, she insisted. I hung up, realizing that talking to Susan was pointless. She was never going to see things from my perspective. One morning, I woke up to find Mark's side of the bed empty. That wasn't unusual these days. But as hours turned into a full day without a word from him, worry started to set in. I called his phone repeatedly, but it went straight to voicemail. Finally, after a week of silence, I heard the front door open. Mark walked in, looking different. There was an unfamiliar air of confidence about him. He wasn't alone. His mother, Susan, strutted in behind him with a smug look on her face. Mark, where the hell have you been? I've been worried sick, I exclaimed, a mix of relief and anger washing over me. Mark looked at me, a smirk on his lips. Oh, Ella, always so dramatic. I have news. I was confused. News? What news? He pulled out the lottery ticket, waving it in front of me. "This, my dear Ella, is our ticket out. I won, Ella. I won $10 million. My heart skipped a beat. "What? How?" Susan chimed in, her voice dripping with condescension. "He bought a lottery ticket with your credit card. Looks like it was a smart investment after all." I was stunned, my mind racing. "My credit card? You used my credit card without asking?" Mark's smirk grew wider. "Well, I needed something to cheer me up after all the nagging, and look, it paid off." The reality of the situation hit me like a ton of bricks. He had taken my card, bought a lottery ticket, and won. It was almost too much to take in. "But Mark, that's our money then. We won," I said, still trying to process the news. Mark's expression turned cold. "No, Ella, I won. And with this money, I'm starting a new life without you." I felt as if the floor had been pulled from under me. "What are you saying?" He was blunt, his words cutting deep. "I'm saying I'm leaving you, Ella. I'm tired of this life, tired of you. I want a fresh start, and now I can afford it." Susan laughed, a cruel sound that made my skin crawl. "Oh, Ella, you really thought you were so smart, didn't you? But you see, you've underestimated my son. He's a winner, and you're just left with nothing." Mark grabbed a suitcase he had apparently packed earlier. "I'm moving in with Mom. You can keep the house and whatever else. I don't need it anymore." Reeling from Mark's departure and his shocking betrayal, I knew I had to act fast. The first thing I did was call a lawyer, Mr. Jacobs, a no-nonsense man who had a reputation for being tough and fair. "Mr. Jacobs, my husband won the lottery with a ticket he bought using my credit card, and now he's leaving me and taking everything," I explained, my voice shaking with emotion. Mr. Jacobs listened intently, his voice calm and steady. "All right, Ella, let's meet tomorrow. We'll go over everything, and I'll see what we can do." The next day, I sat in Mr. Jacobs' office, poring over bank statements and a credit card transaction that showed the purchase of a lottery ticket. "Based on this, we have a strong case," Mr. Jacobs said, his eyes scanning the documents. "The ticket was bought with your money, which means you have a claim to the winnings." I felt a glimmer of hope. "So what's our next step?" "We file for a court injunction to freeze the lottery winnings until this is sorted out legally. Then we prepare for a court battle," he replied, his tone determined. The court day arrived faster than I had anticipated. Mark and Susan were there, smug looks on their faces, as if they had already won. My heart was pounding as I took my seat, Mr. Jacobs beside me. The judge, a stern-looking woman, called the court to order. Mr. Jacobs presented our case with clear, concise arguments, emphasizing the transaction and my contribution to our family's finances. Mark's lawyer tried to argue that the ticket was a separate entity from our marital assets, but Mr. Jacobs countered effectively, showcasing the joint nature of our finances and Mark's lack of contribution. Then it was time for Mark to take the stand. His lawyer asked, "Mr. Johnson, did you use your wife's credit card to purchase the lottery ticket?" Mark replied with a hint of arrogance in his voice, "Yes, but it was just a stroke of luck. It has nothing to do with her." His lawyer continued, "And what were your intentions with the winnings?" Mark glanced at me before answering, "To start a new life." I was tired of being underappreciated and belittled. I felt a surge of anger but remained silent. It was my turn to testify. Mr. Jacobs asked me, "Mrs. Johnson, can you tell the court about your financial contributions to your household?" I took a deep breath. I've been the primary breadwinner for the past few years. I paid the bills, took care of our daughter, and even supported Mark's mother financially. The judge listened intently, occasionally jotting down notes. After both sides presented their cases, she called for a recess before making her decision. The wait was agonizing. When we were called back in, the judge looked at both of us before delivering her verdict. Considering the evidence and the circumstances, I rule that the lottery winnings are a joint marital asset. Therefore, I award 3/4 of the winnings to Mrs. Johnson and 1/4 to Mr. Johnson. Mark's face was a picture of shock, and Susan's smugness had evaporated. I let out a breath I didn't realize I had been holding. It was more than just a legal victory. It was justice. Life after the courtroom drama was like stepping onto a new path, one filled with possibilities and new challenges. My priority was Lily and rebuilding our lives with the winnings that I had fought so hard for. The money was invested wisely, ensuring a stable future for us. Meanwhile, I heard through the grapevine that Mark and his mother, Susan, had blown through their share on frivolous entertainment and were now left with nothing. One day, while running errands, I bumped into Mark. He was a shadow of his former self, unshaven, clothes rumpled, and an air of defeat hanging around him. "Ella, look at what you've done to me. I'm broke, in debt, and they're taking the house," he blurted out, his voice tinged with desperation. I looked at him, feeling no sympathy. "Mark, you did this to yourself. You and your mother couldn't handle the money, and now you're paying the price." He scowled, bitterness seeping through his words. "So you're just going to gloat, see me suffer?" I shook my head, my resolve firm. "I'm not gloating, Mark. I'm just living my life. You made your choices, and I made mine," I said, cutting him off as he tried to interject. "You know, Mark, you and your mother never forgave me for taking what was rightfully mine. You spent your share without a thought for the future. That's on you." Mark's face twisted with anger, but there was a hint of regret in his eyes. "You could have shared more, you could have," he muttered. I interrupted him. "I could have what, Mark? Bailed you out after you betrayed me? After you and your mother laughed in my face? No. I've moved on." He stood there defeated as I walked away. In that moment, I realized how far I had come. I had faced betrayal and heartache, but I hadn't let it break me. Instead, I built a better life for Lily and me, a life built on hard work and smart choices.
Hi everyone, I'm Nancy, a 28-year-old marketing executive at William & Brooks. What I'm about to share will absolutely blow your mind. I met James at the annual marketing summit in Chicago. He was presenting on digital transformation, and I was immediately drawn to his confidence and that warm, genuine smile. During the networking mixer, we hit it off instantly, bonding over our shared love of true crime podcasts and spicy Thai food. "You're different from the usual corporate types," he said, cracking me up with his spot-on impressions of stuffy executives. Our first date was supposed to be a quick coffee, but it turned into 5 hours of nonstop conversation at a little hole-in-the-wall pizza joint. Within 6 months, we were inseparable. My best friend, Sarah, couldn't stop teasing me. "Girl, you're glowing. But have you met his mother yet?" she asked during one of our weekly coffee meetups. "Not yet," I replied. "He says she's a bit traditional." Traditional turned out to be a wild understatement. The first time I met Patricia Anderson, she gave me a look that made me feel like a contestant on The Price is Right, and I was the consolation prize. "So you work in marketing?" "How quaint," she said, the word dripping with disdain. I always thought James would end up with someone from our country club circle. Victoria Matthews, for instance, her family has such a lovely summer home in the Hamptons. James squeezed my hand under the table. "Mom, Nancy just landed the Johnson account. It's the biggest deal her firm has ever seen." "How fortunate for her company," Patricia replied with a tight smile. Despite her frostiness, James proposed a year and a half later. It was perfect, until the wedding planning began. "The Andersons have always married at street rages," Patricia declared at our first planning meeting. "And the color scheme must be cream and gold. Anything else would be pedestrian." "Actually," I countered, "we were thinking of an outdoor ceremony at Riverside Gardens." "Oh, how unique. I suppose some people enjoy that sort of thing," she said with a tone that suggested I had just suggested serving hot dogs at the reception. James' younger brother, Michael, pulled me aside later. "Don't let her get to you," he said. "She did the same thing to James' ex, Linda. Mom's got serious control issues." Even James's dad, Robert, seemed resigned. "Patricia just wants the best for her son," he'd say with a weary smile, but his eyes told a different story. Sarah, on the other hand, saw right through Patricia. "She's marking her territory like a designer-clad pit bull. You need to stand your ground." I tried to keep the peace, but Patricia's suggestions quickly escalated into demands. She started showing up at our apartment unannounced, always with catalogs and vendor contacts in tow. "I'm just trying to help, dear," she'd say. "After all, you're not exactly familiar with our social circle's expectations." The first major red flag came with an invitation to one of her tea parties, which she called a formal welcome to their social circle. I should have known better. "Everyone, I'd like you to meet Nancy," Patricia announced to the room. She used to help around our house before catching James's eye. Quite the ambitious little thing. The room went silent. My cheeks burned as the women exchanged smug, knowing looks. "Actually, I'm a marketing executive," I managed to say, forcing a smile. "Oh, of course you are, dear. Social mobility is so inspiring," she replied with a saccharine grin. I left the party in tears and called Sarah immediately. "That witch, you need to document everything. Voice recordings, texts, the works," she said. When I confronted James that night, his reaction floored me. "Mom probably didn't mean it that way," he said, looking exasperated. "She's just old-fashioned. You're being too sensitive." "Too sensitive?" I shot back. "She told everyone I was your maid." "She's having trouble adjusting." "Give her time," he insisted. That's when I got a message from Linda, James's ex. "I saw what happened at the tea party," she wrote. "Patricia did the same thing to me. She told everyone I was a waitress who served James at a charity event. I was a pediatric surgeon when I met Linda for coffee. She spilled everything. Patricia had shown up at the hospital during my surgeries, telling James I was unavailable because I prioritized work. She even tried to convince my supervisor to schedule me for holidays when the Andersons had events. It was shocking, but not entirely surprising. Sarah, my best friend, had already helped me start a log of Patricia's behavior. The accidental wine spill on my presentation notes before a big meeting. The rumors she spread at the country club about my humble beginnings. The constant guilt-tripping of James about missing family events. "Remember when you wanted to be a teacher?" Patricia asked during dinner one evening. "Before that marketing phase, the private school board still has an opening." "Mom, I love my job," James said, his voice tight. "Family businesses need attention, darling. Nancy surely understands that her career might need adjusting." I watched James closely, searching for a flicker of resistance, but he just stared at his plate, pushing food around with his fork. That night, as I lay awake, the truth hit me. This wasn't just about me. Patricia had a pattern, and I was merely her latest target. But unlike Linda, I wasn't going to disappear quietly. I needed evidence, allies, and a plan. Little did Patricia know, her perfect tea party had set the stage for her biggest mistake. The isolation started subtly. Our couple friends began canceling plans. My calls went unanswered. At a charity gala, I overheard whispers. "She's just after the Anderson fortune." Patricia said she caught her snooping through Robert's office for financial documents. I confronted James that night. "Your mother is destroying my reputation," I said. "Why would Mom lie?" "Maybe you're just not making enough effort with her friends," he replied. Then came the emergencies, my birthday dinner. James rushed out because Patricia had fallen. My big presentation. She had chest pains. Every time, she miraculously recovered as soon as James arrived. The final straw came when my boss called me in. "Nancy, someone has offered to invest heavily in our firm, on a condition we let you go. They've raised concerns about your professional conduct." "Was it Patricia Anderson?" I asked, my voice shaking. His silence was answer enough. That afternoon, I ran into Emma, one of Patricia's closest friends, at the coffee shop. She looked troubled. "I overheard Patricia on the phone," she said. "She's planning something about you and that new intern at your office." She mentioned photos. And James. My blood ran cold. The next evening, Patricia invited us to dinner. As we arrived, the young intern from my office was just leaving, looking confused. "Oh, Thomas, thank you for dropping off those contracts," Patricia said sweetly. "What contracts?" James asked. "The ones Nancy asked him to bring. They've been working very closely lately." "That's a lie," I snapped. "I've barely spoken to him." "Then explain these," Patricia said, pulling out photos of Thomas and me at lunch. "A concerned friend took these. You seem cozy." "It was a team lunch," I said, my voice shaking. "The entire marketing department was there. Those photos are cropped." Emma's voice rang out from the doorway. "I watched Patricia plan this whole thing," she said, holding up her phone. "Here's a recording of her instructing the photographer. Make sure you only get shots of Nancy with a young man. Nothing else." James's face went pale. "Mom," he stammered. "I was protecting you." Patricia cried. "She's not good enough for this family." Michael stepped into the room, his expression grim. "Like you protected James from Linda and Amanda before her," he said. "Should I tell him about Dad's secretary who quit because of your rumors too?" "Michael," Patricia hissed, her composure cracking. "No, Mom. James needs to know. Every relationship, every friendship that didn't fit your plan, you destroyed them all." James turned to me, his face stricken. "Nancy, I'm so sorry. I should have." "Should have what?" I interrupted. "Believed me? Protected me? I did everything to make this work. I tolerated the insults, the lies, the manipulation. But I won't let you destroy my career or my dignity." I pulled out my phone and showed James the texts, recordings, and witness statements I collected. "I'm done," I said, my voice steady. "I deserve better than this." I walked out of Patricia's perfectly decorated dining room, ignoring her protests and James's calls. Sarah was waiting in her car outside. "You were right," I told her, throwing my overnight bag into the back seat. "I need to choose myself." As we drove away, I saw James standing in the driveway, looking lost. But for the first time in months, I felt found. Life got exponentially better after I moved into my own apartment. 6 months of peace and focusing on myself felt like oxygen after drowning. The board unanimously voted to promote you to VP of Marketing. My boss announced one day, "Your handling of the Miller campaign was exceptional. You've brought in more revenue this quarter than any VP before you." Meanwhile, Patricia's carefully constructed world began to crumble. Emma exposed her manipulation to their social circle, and the country club membership she prized above all else was revoked in a very public board meeting. Then came the text from Michael. "Mom wants to meet, says she'll tell you everything. Your call." I thought about Michael's message for days before agreeing to meet Patricia. The cafe was quiet, almost somber. When she arrived, I barely recognized her. The designer outfit was replaced with simple, worn clothes. Her perfectly styled hair now showed streaks of gray. Even her usual imperious posture was gone. "Why?" I asked, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions churning inside. "Why did you do it? All of it?" Her hands trembled around the coffee cup. "I grew up poor," she said finally. "My mother cleaned houses. When I married Robert, his family treated me exactly how I treated you. I swore my children would never marry beneath our status." She paused, her voice cracking. "I became everything I once hated." "That doesn't justify destroying people's lives," I said, keeping my tone firm. "No, it doesn't," she admitted. "I thought I was protecting James. Instead, I turned into my mother-in-law. I controlled, manipulated, destroyed. I lost myself in this persona I created." She told me Robert had filed for divorce after uncovering her manipulations in their family business. Multiple lawsuits followed when her interference came to light. The world she had carefully constructed had crumbled, and she was left to face the ruins. A few weeks later, James asked to meet one last time at our old favorite coffee shop. He looked more grounded than I'd ever seen him. "I've been in therapy," he said. "I realized I was hiding behind Mom because I was afraid of failing on my own. Letting her control everything meant never having to take responsibility." "And now?" I asked. "Now I know I lost something real because I was afraid of being real myself," he said, his voice heavy with regret. "I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to stand up for you." Linda called shortly after. "Fate finally caught up with Patricia," she said, almost gleeful. "How does it feel?" I asked her. "Honestly, I don't think about her anymore," she replied. And she was right. While Patricia faced the fallout, divorced, sued, and banned from the social circles she once dominated, I was thriving. My team won a national marketing award. I began teaching at the local university. Most importantly, I was free. Yesterday, Patricia sent me one last letter. "I know it's too late for forgiveness, but I want you to know you were always better than me, not because of status or money, but because you never let anyone dim your light. I dimmed mine so long ago I forgot it even existed." I didn't respond. Some bridges are meant to stay burned, and some apologies come too late. The last time I saw Patricia, she was sitting alone at a cafe. No designer bag in sight, no social circle to perform for. Our eyes met briefly. I smiled, raised my coffee cup in a small salute, and walked away. My life was waiting, and it was beautiful, not because I'd won, but because I had refused to lose myself. You don't have a room here, so why don't you just sleep in the lobby like a stray dog? The thud of my husband's luggage landing at my feet echoed louder than the words. I stood frozen in the cold spring wind, the sting of rejection settling deep in my chest. Just a week ago, when Mark suggested this family trip, my heart had leaped with hope. Maybe I thought he was finally starting to accept me as part of the family. I poured my soul into preparing for this trip, thinking it was my chance to be acknowledged. But now I see it for what it is, an illusion. A sudden shove from behind jolted me forward, slamming my shoulder into a marble column in the lobby. "Oh, Anna, you're just standing there in the way," my sister-in-law Gemma sneered, her voice honeyed with mock concern. "Maybe you should curl up in a corner, like the stray dog you are." Her smirk was cruel as she relished my discomfort. Behind her, I saw Mark carefully carrying Gemma's luggage, not even sparing me a glance. "Move to the far corner of the lobby," he said coldly. "Your presence only embarrasses us." With that, he walked away, shoulder to shoulder with his sister, their laughter echoing as they disappeared into the elevator. "Isn't this better than being outside in the cold?" My mother-in-law Heather chimed in, her voice sharp with derision. "Compared to being homeless, the lobby is a luxury." She sauntered past me, her laughter grating and unkind. I stared at the marble tiles beneath my feet, my vision blurred. They had reserved 3 rooms, making it clear that I wasn't welcome. For years, I had endured their cruelty, swallowing every insult and slight. Losing my father had left me yearning for the warmth of family, and I had foolishly believed that if I worked harder, if I became a better wife, they might one day accept me. But now, the ache in my shoulder was nothing compared to the storm raging inside me. Under the chandelier's cold, glittering light, I gripped my phone tightly. Something inside me was breaking, crumbling under the weight of their disdain. I took a deep breath, steadying my trembling hands. "My name is Anna James," I whispered to myself. 35 years old, a full-time housewife. I had married Mark 3 years ago, starry-eyed at the idea of becoming part of a new family. Having grown up with just my mother after my father's passing, I had always cherished the dream of family bonds. Since my 20s, I had been quietly investing in stocks, building up a $5 million portfolio. It was a deeply personal achievement, something I had never felt the need to share, not even with Mark. But everything changed one night in our first year of marriage when he came home, drunk and desperate. Through tears, he confessed to a massive gambling debt, claiming he couldn't repay it on his salary. Moved by his vulnerability, I decided to trust him. I revealed my savings, thinking it might strengthen our bond. The very next day, Mark changed. He bragged to his mother and sister about my financial success as if it were his own accomplishment. The man who had seemed so vulnerable the night before now wore a smug grin, his words hollow with pride. "Anna," he would say each month, "I'm a bit short again. Can you help?" At first, I gave in, convincing myself that marriage was about sharing burdens. But Mark spent the money recklessly, without gratitude or thought. Golf clubs, expensive outings, his indulgences piled up while his resentment simmered beneath the surface. "You're lucky to have a wife as generous as Anna," he boasted to Gemma and Heather, their sly glances betraying their envy and disdain. What they didn't know was that I had quietly been paying Gemma's $1,200 rent for years after Mark begged me to help her. "My mom's struggling," Anna Heath said, his voice laced with guilt. "I feel terrible not being able to do more." It didn't stop there. Heather, too, leaned on me financially. Her comments were veiled in sarcasm, her demands wrapped in the pretense of family unity. "Mark is lucky to have married someone wealthy," she'd say, the words cutting in their simplicity. I endured it all, every insult, every ungrateful demand, because I thought family was worth the sacrifice. My embroidery had been my one solace, a skill passed down from my mother. The cherry blossom piece we had stitched together before her passing hung in my study, a reminder of her love. But even that wasn't safe from Heather's scorn. "Embroidery? Really?" she scoffed once. "Such an old-fashioned hobby, like something a grandma would do." Her words stung, but I knew Heather's resentment wasn't entirely about me. Her bitterness was rooted in her own unhappy marriage, and I had become an easy target for her frustrations. "Anna, you'd never understand," she'd say, her tone dripping with disdain. "Without kids or a job, You don't know what real struggles are. Yes, Anna's so old-fashioned, isn't she? Gemma would chime in, her voice laced with mockery. Rich, but somehow so plain. When the two of them were together, they always managed to gang up on me, turning even mundane conversations into opportunities to jab at me. Mark, as usual, brushed it all off with a vague laugh. He had grown up in a single-parent household, and I knew he would never confront his mother. Sometimes he even joined in, laughing as Heather and Gemma mocked me. When we first married, I believed I could nurture a strong bond with his family. I listened to Heather's complaints, helped Gemma financially, and made every effort to strengthen our ties. In the beginning, things seemed promising. Mark was respectful of my success. Gemma was considerate, and Heather treated me like a sister. But over time, everything twisted. Mark's demands grew incessant, Gemma's dependency deepened, and Heather's bitterness sharpened. I held on, convincing myself they would one day understand and accept me. "Thank you, Anna," Gemma would say, smiling sweetly. "I'll make sure to pay this month's rent by tomorrow." But the money never came from her account. Month after month, I deposited $1,200 directly to her landlord to keep her from losing her apartment. "Mom, are you sure you've handled the rent?" I overheard Mark asking Heather once. "Oh, I'm managing just fine," she replied breezily. "I never want my son to worry about me." Her words stung, knowing full well that she relied on me financially while pretending otherwise. I could never bring myself to tell Mark the truth. The weight of their expectations hollowed me out. Mark's obliviousness, his mother's manipulation, and his sister's malice began to wear me down. Embroidery became my escape. With every stitch, I felt a connection to my late mother, as though her spirit sat beside me, guiding my hands. It was a fleeting but precious comfort. But even that refuge wasn't safe from intrusion. "Anna, why don't we all have tea together? Let's spend time as a family," Gemma would suggest. If I declined, her glare was sharp enough to cut. "How dare you act this way? Aren't we family?" Heather would pile on. "Isn't family important to you, Anna?" Even Mark didn't stand by me. "Why can't you just get along with my mom and sister?" he'd say with exasperation. Their scorn seeped into every corner of my life. What had once been a source of joy, my embroidery, now felt like an indulgence I wasn't allowed to have. Each prick of the needle became a reminder of guilt and judgment. My home, which should have been my sanctuary, was suffocating. One evening, as I sat in silence, Mark approached me. "Anna, I want to get new golf clubs," he said, his tone casual but insistent. When I hesitated, his expression darkened. "Oh, I get it. Someone from a poor background like me doesn't deserve anything nice, right?" And then there was Gemma. Her calls were no longer surprising. "I could really use help with rent again this month," she'd say, her tone feigning gratitude. Without a word, I transferred the payment directly to her landlord. One day, as I made yet another transfer, something snapped. "Mom, is that a new handbag?" Mark's voice startled me. I looked up to see Gemma proudly showing off a designer bag. How could she afford it if she was struggling with rent? The realization hit me like a slap. My support wasn't helping. It was enabling. Mark, oblivious, grinned. "Mom's got the good stuff. Anna, you should treat me too." I found myself questioning why I continued to enable their behavior. I was trapped by a false sense of duty, held hostage by the hope that things might change. Then, out of the blue, Mark suggested something unexpected. "Hey, Anna, let's do something special for your birthday this year. Just the two of us." I blinked in surprise. In our 3 years of marriage, we had never celebrated my birthday together. "I'll plan everything," he said, a rare enthusiasm lighting up his face. "It's your birthday after all." He showed me pictures of luxury hotels, scrolling through his phone with excitement. "How about somewhere nearby, like Napa or Carmel?" I nodded quietly, touched by his sudden effort. For the first time in years, I felt a flicker of hope. "It might be better to book it under your name," he added casually. "You know, for credibility." His words gave me pause, but I brushed it aside, eager for the chance to rekindle our connection. As the trip date approached, Mark's behavior grew strange. I brushed it off at first, but 3 days before the trip, Mark came home earlier than usual. His tone made my heart sink. "There's something I want to talk to you about," he said, sitting down with a forced seriousness. "My mom found a restaurant nearby she really wants to try, so I thought it would be nice to invite her along." I barely whispered the question, feeling an uneasy weight settle in my chest. Why? Come on, Anna. She'd love it. It'll be family time. His words were light, but the undertone was clear. Family meant his mother, his sister, and maybe me. Oh, and my sister will be coming too, he added, his hesitation betraying his discomfort. His expression made it obvious I'd never been the priority. What was supposed to be my birthday trip, I thought, had somehow morphed into a family affair. He tried to soften it, his voice laced with sympathy. My sister's husband and she had a big argument, so she could use the break, you know? The rehearsed quality of his explanation only added to my unease. But this was supposed to be my birthday, I said, my voice trembling with a mix of disbelief and frustration. What's the problem? It's just family. His tone sharpened, blaming me for resisting. So what, Anna? Are you really that against having them with us? His gaze hardened, daring me to argue. I swallowed my response, feeling like another battle had been won by him. The morning of the trip, Gemma and Heather were waiting by the station as though they'd always planned to come along. Anna, we're all set to go, right? Heather's voice held that familiar taunting sweetness. Isn't this just perfect? A family trip for your birthday. Her words dripped with sarcasm, and with each one, my last ounce of hope crumbled. 3 years of marriage, all my sacrifices, all my hope for a meaningful connection, and this was how it ended up. Waiting quietly on the platform, I closed my eyes, feeling the faint breeze on my cheek. Oh, Mark, I'd love one of those nice lunches. Heather's voice pierced through the quiet deliberately loud. She looped her arm through Mark's, ignoring me completely. Sure, Mom, I'll pay, Mark said, already focused on them. He held out his hand to me without so much as a glance. I handed over my wallet, feeling the sting of his disregard. I'll have the shrimp stir-fry, just like Mark's order, Heather said with a self-satisfied look as she placed her order. Same for me. Nothing like family enjoying the same thing, huh? Gemma and Heather exchanged smug grins, leaving me on the outside of what was supposed to be my special day. On a train, Mark sat between his mother and sister, with me relegated to a separate seat across the aisle. So, Mark, last night was awful. My husband, well, you know how he is, Gemma complained, her voice cutting through the air. I sat quietly, the weight of their words pressing down on me. And Anna, without kids or a career, you wouldn't understand what I go through. True. Anna's got it easy, doesn't she? They both laughed, and Mark gave a small chuckle, as though it was all harmless. By the time we reached the hotel, they had shattered any illusion of a warm birthday celebration. Hello, Mr. James, your reservation includes 2 rooms, the receptionist said. Mark turned to me, a smug smile curling on his lips. Oh, Anna, I only booked 2 rooms. Mom and I will share one, and my sister has her own. Where am I supposed to stay? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. There's enough room for you. But hey, the lobby has some comfy couches. Lucky you, right? He grinned, his words dripping with insincerity. Gemma and Heather laughed openly, not even trying to hide their satisfaction. Look on the bright side, Anna. Better here than outside in the cold like some stray dog, Heather mocked. Mark grabbed my wallet again, extracting a few bills. Don't worry, Anna. We'll grab some drinks in your honor. Without a second glance, he walked off with his mother and sister, leaving me standing alone in the lobby. As they left, a strange calm settled over me. It was a turning point. I took out my phone and sent a quick message to a contact. Is there anything we can help with, Miss James? Yes, actually, I responded, a faint smile tugging at my lips. I spoke to the owner, and he assured me I'd be well accommodated. The hotel staff's demeanor changed instantly, recognizing the hotel owner's name. We're terribly sorry, Miss James. Let me alert the manager immediately. I watched as they scrambled to assist me, finally feeling a hint of satisfaction as they upgraded me to the presidential suite. A private dinner was arranged, and I was treated like the only guest that mattered. By the time Mark and his family realized where I was already enjoying a gourmet meal alone in quiet luxury. Mark sent panicked texts, but I ignored them. His growing frustration added to my quiet triumph. For once, I enjoyed my birthday free from their scrutiny, knowing this was the beginning of my freedom. The next morning, I left the hotel as quietly as I had arrived, having settled everything on Mark's credit card. It was time to take my life back, leaving them to deal with their own pettiness. The staff's polite smiles as I departed made me feel more supported than my own family ever had. On the train back, I turned off my phone, not wanting to be disturbed by the inevitable frenzy awaiting them at the hotel. A few hours later, Mark and his family were in a panic. "This has to be a mistake. Just wait a minute." Mark's face went pale as the front desk explained the charges. His realization dawned. His card had maxed out. What kind of woman would do this to her husband? Heather screeched. "She's just shameless. How could she leave us here with this bill?" The hotel staff calmly informed them that they'd be allowed to settle the bill later, a courtesy thanks to my connections. But they had no idea how badly this would impact their social standing. When I returned home, the house was silent. But for the first time in years, I felt at peace. I opened the curtains to let in the fresh spring sunlight and sat down, breathing deeply, feeling a sense of relief. An hour later, the front door slammed open, followed by Mark's furious voice. "Anna, what the hell were you thinking?" he demanded, his anger palpable. His mother's high-pitched voice joined in, followed by Gemma's sneering remarks. They raised their voices, trying to humiliate me into submission. I watched them silently, my expression unreadable. "Why don't we continue this discussion outside?" I suggested calmly, catching them off guard. "You wouldn't want the neighbors to hear, would you?" They paused, realizing the implications of what I'd said. I walked them out, finally ready to confront everything they'd hidden for so long. "By the way," I said, my voice steady, "here's the truth about the support I've given your mother these past years." Mark's expression shifted as I explained how I'd quietly covered Heather's rent for 3 years. "That arrangement is over." Heather's face went pale, her earlier arrogance replaced by desperation. "But Anna, please, you can't just stop like this," she pleaded. "I can, and I already have," I replied coolly. I informed Gemma that her petty posts about me had been well documented and were now shared with her husband, who was already filing for divorce. One by one, they began to understand the weight of their actions and how their dependency on me had led them to this point. A few weeks later, Mark came by to collect the rest of his things. I wore a simple black dress, knowing this was our last goodbye. "Can't we start over?" he asked, his voice pleading. "You spent years treating me like a monster wife." I stepped closer, my voice calm. "Well, I hope you enjoyed it. There's no need for me to act like the villain anymore. This is the end." A few days later, I received a package. Inside was one of my cherished embroidery pieces, carefully wrapped with a note. "From Mark's niece. Apologies." It was a small but powerful reminder that kindness and understanding didn't come from status or force, but from genuine connection. My embroidery classes began shortly after. I poured myself into teaching, sharing what my mother had taught me. Each time I worked, I felt that deep connection to her spirit. I had finally found my peace, not by forcing anyone to be family, but by building my own circle of support and joy, just as my mother would have wanted. My name is Karen Charles, and if there's one thing I've always strived for, it's making my family proud. My parents, mom and dad, raised us with strong values: family first, hard work, and always supporting one another. Those lessons shaped me into the person I am today, someone who fought her way up to marketing director at Anthony and Associates by the time I turned 32. My husband, Larry Chen, has been my unwavering support through it all. We met 5 years ago during a coffee shop mishap. He accidentally spilled his latte all over my meticulously prepared presentation papers. I was furious at first, but somehow, that chaotic moment turned into something beautiful. Larry has been my rock ever since. "You're going to love Deborah. She's absolutely perfect." My brother Nathan had gushed 2 years ago about his then-girlfriend. Nathan, the ever-talented architect, met her at a client's office where she worked as an HR manager. "I've never seen your brother this happy," Mom whispered to me during their engagement party. She was right. Nathan practically glowed whenever he was around Deborah, and she seemed like everything we could ask for in a new family member. The first 6 months after their wedding were like a dream. Deborah charmed everyone. She came to our weekly Sunday dinners with homemade desserts, thoughtful gifts, and a knack for making everyone feel special. My friends adored her. "Karen, you're so lucky to have such an amazing sister-in-law," they'd say after meeting her at our social gatherings, and I agreed. Deborah seemed flawless, a radiant addition to the family. When a position opened up in the HR department at my company, I immediately thought of Deborah. "Are you sure about this, honey?" Larry asked one evening as I prepared her recommendation letter. Mixing family and business can be tricky. Of course, she's qualified, and it'll be great having her around. Plus, she's been talking about wanting a change, I said confidently. Our parents were thrilled. Sunday dinners felt more special with both couples there. Nathan would entertain us with stories about his latest architectural projects, while Larry and Deborah debated office politics and workplace dynamics. "You used to draw building plans in crayon," I teased Nathan one night. "And you made me play office with your stuffed animals," he shot back with a laugh. "You two have such a special bond." Deborah chimed in, her smile warm. But looking back, perhaps it hid something darker. I didn't realize it at the time, but Deborah's kindness was a mask. Behind those perfect smiles and thoughtful gestures, she was already scheming to destroy everything I held dear. The first sign came during our company's annual marketing summit. I was presenting a critical campaign to potential clients when I noticed Deborah whispering to our biggest client's wife. "I just thought you should know what kind of person is handling your husband's account." Deborah's voice carried across the room during a pause in my presentation. The client's wife turned red and left abruptly. Days later, the client pulled their account. 3 years of work gone. Larry found me crying in the kitchen that evening. "They pulled their account, Larry," I said through tears. 3 years of effort, and now it's all gone." "Did they say why?" he asked, pulling me into his arms. "The wife accused me of having an affair with her husband," I whispered, barely believing the words myself. The rumors spread like wildfire. I overheard whispers in the break room. "I heard Karen sleeps with her clients," one voice said. "No wonder she's so successful," another replied. When I tried to talk to Nathan about Deborah's behavior, his response floored me. "Maybe you're just jealous that she's doing well in HR," he said coolly. "Are you serious, Nate? She's spreading lies about me?" I snapped. "There you go again, making everything about you," he shot back. "Deborah told me how you're constantly undermining her at work. How you're always showing off your position." Tensions have been brewing for weeks, and Sunday dinner at my parents' house only made things worse. Mom, ever perceptive, finally said what everyone was thinking. "You two barely look at each other anymore. What's going on?" Nathan muttered under his breath. "Ask your perfect daughter. She's probably upset about how Deborah breathes too loudly or something." "That's not fair," I began, but Deborah cut me off with her syrupy, fake sweet voice. "Oh, it's nothing serious," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Karen's just been under a lot of pressure at work. Some clients have been difficult." The way she lingered on the word difficult made my blood boil, but I bit my tongue for Mom's sake. The final straw came during the biggest project of my career. I'd spent months developing a revolutionary marketing campaign for a major tech giant, a project that could redefine our company's future. But on the morning of the pitch, disaster struck. My competitors somehow had our entire presentation, down to the last detail. The room was buzzing with whispers before I even began, and I knew something was wrong. My boss called me into his office later that day, his tone sharp. "Care to explain how our confidential pitch ended up in every major agency's inbox?" I froze. "What? That's impossible. Only my team had access. And HR," he added, the implication clear. That evening, Deborah had the audacity to text me. "Heard about the pitch. Such a shame when things don't work out. Maybe stick to smaller clients next time." I showed the message to Nathan, hoping he'd finally see what she was doing. "She's just trying to be supportive in her own way," he said defensively. "Supportive? She's destroying everything I've worked for." Nathan glared at me. "See, this is exactly what Deborah means. You always think everyone's out to get you. Maybe if you weren't so focused on being perfect all the time." I watched him walk away, blind to the manipulation. That night, another message from Deborah buzzed on my phone. "Family dinner this Sunday should be interesting. Hope you're ready for what's coming." Her words felt like a threat, and I knew she wasn't done. The Crystal Room at Lizen was packed for my parents' 35th wedding anniversary. It should have been a joyful celebration, but I couldn't ignore the storm brewing. Deborah, wine glass in hand, grew louder with every refill. "A toast," she slurred, raising her glass. "To perfect marriages." She glanced at me with a mocking smile. Like Karen's picture-perfect life with Larry. Some of us aren't so lucky, right, Nathan? Nathan leaned toward her, whispering, "Maybe you should slow down." "Why?" she snapped. "So your sister can keep pretending she's better than everyone." Her voice cut through the room, always the golden child. The perfect daughter. Perfect wife. Perfect everything. Mom tried to calm her. "Sweetheart, let's focus on celebrating." "Oh, I am celebrating," Deborah interrupted, stumbling to her feet and grabbing her purse. "Celebrating the fact that I finally have proof of what a manipulative witch your daughter really is." She pulled out a stack of papers, waving them dramatically. "Look what I found, emails between Karen and Nathan. She's been telling him to leave me for months." "That's not true." I stood, my heart pounding. "Nathan, I haven't even been able to reach you for weeks because I blocked her number," Deborah interrupted with a smirk. She turned to Nathan. "For your own good, baby. Look at these messages she sent." Nathan grabbed the papers, his face shifting as he read. "These dates. I never received these emails. And this isn't Karen's email address. This is a fake account." "What?" Deborah's smug expression faltered. "And these responses, I never wrote these." He stared at her, his voice breaking. "Deborah, what did you do?" The room fell silent until Maria, Deborah's assistant, stepped forward hesitantly. "I can't stay quiet anymore," she said, pulling out her phone. "I have something everyone needs to see." She pressed play on a video. Deborah's voice rang out clearly. "I want every email between Nathan and his sister intercepted. Forward them to me before deleting them. And send these fake responses from the account I created. Karen Charles needs to learn her place." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Nathan's face went ashen. "You've been intercepting my messages," he whispered, "making me think Karen was ignoring me." "I had to," Deborah cried. "She was turning you against me. She's always been jealous of our marriage." "Jealous?" I said, unable to hold back. "You've been spreading lies about me, sabotaging my projects, and tearing my relationships apart, and I'm the jealous one." Maria stepped forward again. She also leaked the Thompson campaign details to competitors. "I have the emails proving it." Nathan turned to Deborah, his voice cold. "We're done. Don't bother coming home tonight." The room buzzed with whispers as Deborah stood frozen, her mask finally shattered. Nathan turned to me, tears in his eyes. "Karen, I'm so sorry. I should have seen it sooner." Dad put his arms around both of us, just like he used to when we were kids. "The truth always comes out," he said softly. "Always." A week after the disastrous restaurant scene, I was called into HR to give my statement. Security footage had caught Deborah accessing confidential files after hours and tampering with employee communications. Maria provided a meticulous record of every illegal action she'd witnessed, and the case against Deborah was ironclad. "All harassment claims have been substantiated," my boss announced during a company-wide meeting. "Deborah Miller has been terminated, effective immediately." That evening, Nathan called me. His voice was shaking. I just got off the phone with my bank. She's been stealing from our joint accounts for months, nearly $60,000. Gone." "Oh my God, Nathan, what are you going to do?" "I filed for divorce this morning," he said, his voice heavy. "But that's not all. Remember when she claimed her old boss was harassing her? Turns out she was the one harassing her coworkers. They've been warning potential employers about her for years." By the next Sunday dinner, the first peaceful one in months, Nathan had uncovered even more. She had a whole folder of fake emails, manipulated photos, even a list of people she planned to turn against me, he confessed, shaking his head. "I was such a fool." "You weren't a fool," Mom said gently, squeezing his hand. "You were in love with the person she pretended to be." That evening, my phone buzzed with a text from Maria. "Thought you'd want to know. Deborah's been job hunting, but her harassment record follows her everywhere. No one will touch her." 2 months later, I finally got the promotion I'd been working so hard for. During the celebration dinner, Nathan raised his glass. "To my sister," he said, his voice filled with gratitude, "who never stopped being there for me, even when I pushed her away." After dinner, Dad called us all into the living room. "Just got word from Uncle Steve," he began. "Deborah's moved back in with her parents. No job, no money, no friends left. Even her own family barely speaks to her after learning what she did." I heard she tried starting rumors about me at other companies, I added, but no one believes her anymore. Her reputation's destroyed. Karma, Mom said, surprising us all. Not that I wish her ill, but sometimes people create their own punishment. Nathan looked at the family photos on the wall, real memories, not the fake perfection Deborah had tried to manufacture. You know what's funny, he said. She was so worried about you ruining her marriage, Karen. But in the end, she destroyed everything. All by herself. Looking around at my family, stronger and closer than ever, I realized something. Despite all the pain and chaos Deborah had caused, she had given us a gift. Sometimes it takes facing someone's worst to fully appreciate the best in those who truly love you. Hi, I'm Ashley Michael, a 28-year-old financial analyst at Morgan Stanley. While I take pride in my career, my heart has always been tied to our family business. You really should let me help with the books, Dad. I do this for a living. Everything's fine, Princess. Mark's got it handled. That exchange at our weekly family dinner churned my stomach. My father, Thomas Michael, wasn't just being stubborn. Something was off. At 58, he should have been basking in the success of Michael Auto Parts, the business he built from a single store into a 12-location chain spanning 3 states. Instead, dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his hands trembled when holding his fork. Your brother's doing great managing the finances. Focus on your own career, Dad added. Sure, if great meant running 3 previous businesses into the ground. Mark, my older brother and Dad's golden child, joined the family business 5 years ago after his latest failed startup. Even after Mom passed when we were kids, Mark could do no wrong in Dad's eyes. Ashley, you won't believe what I found reviewing those contracts you mentioned. Lisa's voice crackled over the phone later that night. My best friend and corporate lawyer had an uncanny knack for sniffing out trouble. Please tell me it's good news, I said. Not exactly. The paperwork is strange. Like really strange. Determined to get answers, I stopped by the flagship store that week. Mike, the longtime manager, pulled me aside. Miss Ashley, something ain't right. Your brother's been having meetings after hours. What kind of meetings? I asked. The kind where folks don't look like they're here to buy car parts, if you know what I mean. Just then, Mark's wife, Helen, waltzed in, dripping with new jewelry. Oh, didn't expect to see you here. Don't you have your own job to worry about? She sneered. Nice bracelet, Helen. Must have cost a fortune. Mark takes care of me, she replied, her voice sugary sweet. Unlike some people, I know how to be grateful to this family. That night at dinner, I watched Dad push his food around his plate while Mark bragged about his latest business strategy. Mom would have seen right through this. She used to say family secrets were like engine problems. Ignore them, and everything falls apart. The quarterly numbers look fantastic, Mark announced, grinning. But Dad's hand shook as he reached for his wine. Maybe I could take a look, I offered. Back off, Ashley, Mark snapped. You're not part of this. Dad's face paled. Ashley, please, just trust us to handle this. I nodded, but deep down, I knew something was very wrong. The first red flag was the missing delivery trucks, 3 of them gone, with no paperwork explaining where or why. During a walkthrough of the warehouse, Mike grabbed my arm. Miss Ashley, your brother's been having more of those late meetings. Last night, some guys in fancy suits showed up. They weren't looking for spark plugs. Thanks, Mike. Keep an eye out for me, I said. As I headed to Dad's office, shouting stopped me in my tracks. Where's the rest of it, Mark? They're not going to wait forever. Dad's voice was laced with panic. I'll handle it. Just keep quiet and let me fix this, Mark yelled back. Peeking through the crack in the door, I saw Dad gripping his desk, his face ashen. Mark paced the room, running his hands through his hair, his telltale sign of losing control. Days later, Helen sauntered into the store with a new designer bag dangling from her arm. Look what Mark bought me, she gloated. Isn't he the most generous husband? That's quite a spending spree you're on, Helen. Business must be booming. Oh, honey, you have no idea. Maybe if you weren't so busy playing detective, you'd actually find someone to spoil you too. Helen's words rang in my ears long after she left. That evening, I waited until the store emptied before slipping into Dad's office. My heart sank when I found the note in his drawer. Time's running out. Pay up, or everyone learns the truth. Dad, we need to talk about this, I said the next day, confronting him. Everything's fine, Ashley. Please just stay out of it, he insisted. You've lost $15 million in 2 months. That's not fine. Before Dad could respond, Mark stormed into the office, his eyes blazing. Why can't you just mind your own business? He barked. Mark, stop. Dad's voice trembled. No, she needs to back off. His words carried a weight I couldn't ignore. That night, I called Lisa. I need your help. Something's seriously wrong, and I think Mark's involved in something illegal, I told her. Send me everything. Bank statements, inventory reports, all of it, Lisa said. And Ashley, be careful. This feels bigger than just cooking the books. Lisa and I worked late into the night, poring over documents spread across her dining room table. Holy crap, she muttered, pointing to a stack of invoices. These are fake. Mark's been inflating parts orders to funnel money through the business. I sifted through bank statements, my hands shaking. Look at these withdrawals, $50,000 here, $30,000 there. Where's it all going? Lisa's face darkened. These amounts match deposits at Crown Casino. Ashley, your brother's got gambling debts. Big ones. Mike, the store manager, later confirmed what we feared. He captured footage of Mark meeting shady men in suits at 2 a.m., money exchanging hands. And Dad, he looked terrified in the background. There's more, Lisa said, pulling up Helen's bank records. Your sister-in-law has offshore accounts. They've been hiding assets. Then my phone buzzed. It was Mike. They're here again, he whispered. Your brother's screaming at your dad about some payment being due. Miss Ashley, they mentioned your name. I raced to the store. When I arrived, I found Dad slumped in his office chair, tears streaming down his face. Daddy, please tell me what's happening, I begged. I can't, he whispered, his voice breaking. He said he'd hurt you. Who? These people Mark owes money to. They're dangerous. If I didn't help cover his debts, they'd come after you first. How much does he owe? $2 million. The gambling, the drugs, I've been selling everything I can. But it's not enough. They gave us until Friday. Before I could respond, the office door slammed open. Mark stood there, his face twisted with rage. You just couldn't leave it alone, could you? Had to play detective. How could you do this to Dad? To the business? Mom wooled. Shut up, he roared. You don't understand what's at stake. I understand you're a pathetic addict, I snapped. You'd rather threaten your own family than face the consequences. Mark, please, Dad pleaded. We can find another way. There is no other way, Mark shouted. His finger jabbed toward me. And you've ruined everything. Helen just called the bank. She froze our accounts. What did you do? He spat. What he should have done years ago, I shot back. I'm protecting this family. Mark lunged at me, but Dad stepped between us. Touch her, and I'll call them myself, Dad said, his voice firm. It's over, son. Mark's face hardened. You're both dead to me. When they come collecting, don't expect me to protect you anymore. He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Through the window, I watched as he climbed into a black SUV, the same one from the security footage. Dad, pack a bag, I said, my voice steady. You're staying with me tonight. Tears streamed down his face as he nodded. Ashley, I'm so sorry. I thought I could handle it. We'll fix this, I told myself. But first, I needed to make some calls. Sometimes, karma just needs a little push. Taking a deep breath, I hit send. The anonymous email detailing Helen's offshore accounts went straight to Mark's business associates. 3 days later, Helen stormed into the store, her face red and streaked with tears. They took everything. The cars, the jewelry, my bags. Mark, what did you do? She screamed. Shut up. Just shut up. Mark's face turned purple with rage. Someone told him about our accounts. They're threatening to break my legs. Helen didn't flinch. I want a divorce. My lawyer's already drawing up the papers. The next morning, 2 IRS agents showed up at the store. Someone, definitely not Lisa, had tipped them off about years of unreported income. The fraud department from our insurance company wasn't far behind. Your brother's going away for a while, Lisa told me over coffee later that week. Tax evasion. Funny how that always gets them. Al Capone went down the same way. Meanwhile, Dad was busy signing new ownership papers, officially making Mike a full partner. I should have trusted you from the start, Princess, Dad said, his voice heavy with regret. Mark, he stopped being my son the moment he threatened you. Dad, the business is going to be fine, I reassured him. Our new inventory system is already showing better profits. A few days later, my phone buzzed with a restricted number. Mark's voice crackled through the line. Ashley, please, I'm facing serious time. I'm sorry for everything. I didn't reply. I hung up and blocked the number. 6 months later, Dad and I stood together in the newly renovated flagship store. The fresh sign outside read, Michael and Sons Auto Parts. Family owned since 1985. Your mother would be proud, Dad said, squeezing my hand. She always said you had her business sense. Mike mentioned casually, we got a postcard. From Mark's ex-wife. She's in Miami now, living with some rich developer. Mark? He's looking at 8 years minimum. I tossed the postcard in the trash. Some people call it karma. I call it justice. The business is thriving now. Dad's smiling again, teaching Mike everything he knows. And me? I still run the books, but differently than Mark ever did. Every dollar accounted for, every transaction clean. Last week, I got another letter from Mark. I didn't even open it. Some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. You ever miss him? Dad asked during our weekly family dinner. I miss who I thought he was, I admitted. But that person never really existed. We raised our glasses. To family, the real kind. The kind that builds you up instead of tearing you down. Mark's old office is my workspace now. Sometimes karma does need a push, but once it starts rolling, you'd better get out of its way. What would you do if you discovered your sibling was hiding crimes and threatening your family to keep it secret? Would you expose them immediately or try to handle it quietly? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories of dealing with toxic family members and how you protected yourself and your loved ones. If this story of standing up to betrayal resonated with you, hit subscribe for more real stories about overcoming toxic relationships and finding justice. New videos every week about survival, revenge, and coming out stronger. Don't forget to like and share if you enjoyed this story of karma finally catching up to those who deserve it. Hi, I'm Danielle. If you need to hear this, let me tell you something. Life has a way of peeling back the curtain, often in the most painful ways. That's how I finally saw the truth. Remember, presentation is everything, dear, Logan said one morning, adjusting my blazer with a little too much care. His hands lingered on my shoulders, firm and controlling. Mother thinks you should dress more conservatively for work. I brushed his hands away and forced a smile. I have a major client meeting today. I think I know how to dress for my own career. This was typical of our mornings in our polished suburban Boston home. From the outside, we were picture perfect, a successful couple with enviable careers, a beautiful house, and the admiration of everyone we knew. I was a marketing executive. Logan worked in finance, and together we were the golden couple. Or so it seemed. Over breakfast, I tried to keep the mood light. Your mother called again. She wants us to change our vacation plans to join them in Martha's Vineyard. Logan didn't hesitate. Then we'll go to Martha's Vineyard, he said, already dialing. Mother. Yes, we'd love to join you. That's how it always was. His parents dictated, and Logan obeyed. Frances, my best friend, saw the cracks long before I did. During one of our coffee meetups, she frowned at me, concerned. Your husband canceled dinner plans with me again because his mother wanted an impromptu family dinner. Danielle, this isn't normal. It's complicated, Frances. Family is everything to Logan. At work, even my mentor, Alex Torres, began to notice. Danielle, you've earned this project. Don't let anyone take it from you. But Logan had other plans, a female-led campaign. Mother thinks it's too aggressive. Maybe you should let Thompson handle it, he suggested one night, with a casual cruelty that left no room for argument. The breaking point came during one of those dreaded family dinners at the Barrett Mansion. I was stuck in a critical meeting with our biggest client when the text started. Where are you? Mother is waiting. You're embarrassing me. You better have a good excuse. Each buzz made my hands shake. Finally, Logan's last message came. You have 5 minutes to get here, or there will be consequences. When I arrived, the room was a frozen tableau of judgment. Richard Barrett sat at the head of the table, his fingers drumming a steady rhythm. Eleanor's lips were a tight, disapproving line. Emma, Logan's sister, stared at her plate, avoiding my gaze. 45 minutes, Logan said, his voice sharp and unforgiving. You kept my family waiting for 45 minutes. I'm so sorry, I began, still catching my breath. I was in a crucial. Enough. Logan's hand slammed against the table, making the crystal glasses rattle. On your knees. I blinked, unsure if I'd heard correctly. What? On your knees, he repeated, his voice icy. Apologize properly to my parents. Logan, please not here, I whispered, mortified. His grip on my arm was sudden and bruising. Do it, he hissed. The cold marble floor bit into my knees as I lowered myself. His hand pressed firmly on my shoulder, forcing me to bow. I'm sorry for my tardiness. Judge Barrett and Mrs. Barrett, I stammered, my voice barely audible. Mrs. Barrett, Eleanor corrected, her tone dripping with condescension. Really, Logan, her lack of proper upbringing shows more every day. After what felt like an eternity, Logan pulled me up. Now we can have dinner like a civilized family, he declared. The next day at work, I hid the bruises on my wrist beneath my sleeve, but Alex noticed. During a meeting, he caught my arm. Danielle, my office. Now. Once the door closed, the dam broke. Everything spilled out. The constant control, the daily calls to his parents, the growing physical intimidation. Last month's charity gala, I choked out. Eleanor told everyone Logan was fixing my low-class tendencies. She said some people just aren't born with proper breeding. Alex's face darkened. Call Frances. She needs to hear this too. An hour later, Frances burst into Alex's office. One look at me, and she pulled me into a fierce hug. Why didn't you tell me it was this bad? Because it happened so slowly, I whispered. First, it was little comments about my clothes, my job. Then Logan started checking my phone, claiming his mother was worried about my inappropriate social media posts. He made me change my passwords and began policing my contacts. My friends, my independence, my entire life slowly eroded. Frances had noticed the changes long before I admitted them. He's constantly correcting you at dinner parties, she said, her voice tight with anger. Richard keeps reminding everyone how his judicial connections can make or break careers. It got worse. Last week, Logan threw out my mother's old recipe book, calling it low class after Eleanor decreed it wasn't Barrett family standard. Alex noticed the bruises first. How long? He asked quietly one morning in his office. 3 months, I admitted. It started when I refused to quit my job. Eleanor said working wives are unseemly. Logan said I was destroying his family's reputation. Frances gripped my hand tightly. Has he hit you? No, I whispered. Just grabs, pushes. He says it's for my own good. That I need to learn. I wiped my eyes, the memory of the Barrett family dinner cutting like a blade. Yesterday, when he forced me to kneel, Emma looked horrified. Later, she told me, this is what they do. They break people who don't fit their mold. You're not going back there, Frances declared. But Logan. Will what? Alex's voice was steel. Use his father's connections. Let him try. I've got a few of my own. I stared at my hands, remembering how they trembled under Logan's grip. I don't even recognize myself anymore. They're erasing everything I am. Then it's time, Frances said firmly, to show them exactly who Danielle Williams is. The weeks that followed were a careful dance of planning, documentation, and discovery. Frances helped me set up hidden cameras in the house. Alex connected me with a discreet security expert who found tracking software on my phone, disguised as a family safety app. During a secret lunch with Emma at a cafe far from the Barrett's usual haunts, the full picture began to emerge. You're not the first, Danielle, Emma revealed, her voice trembling. Logan was engaged twice before you. Catherine lasted until she refused to convert to Mother's religion. Rebecca wanted to keep her career. Mother made sure both relationships ended. How? I asked, horrified. The same playbook, Emma explained. Isolation, humiliation, then character assassination. Mother had Richard use his connections to get Catherine fired. Rebecca's family business suddenly faced audit after audit until she broke things off. Emma slid a USB drive across the table. The household staff has seen everything. Margaret, our housekeeper, even kept a diary. There's security footage on here too, things you need to see. That night, I watched the videos, my stomach turning with every revelation. Logan meeting with his ex-girlfriend Lisa in the garden, a rendezvous Eleanor had arranged. Danielle's getting too independent, Eleanor said coldly. Lisa knows how to be a proper Barrett wife. There were more. Logan sabotaging my client presentations by accidentally deleting files. Richard making calls to competing firms, warning them against hiring me. Eleanor spreading rumors about my mental instability at charity events. Alex guided me in building a wall of evidence they couldn't destroy. Document everything, he said. Every threatening text, every voicemail. Save it all. The household staff became invaluable allies. Margaret confessed, Mrs. Eleanor tried to make me spy on you, but I've seen this before. My sister didn't survive her abusive marriage. I began quietly moving money into a secret account using France's address for the paperwork. Alex laid the groundwork for my professional escape, connecting me with contacts in New York. Your performance reviews, project successes, client testimonials, all backed up, he assured me. They can't erase your achievements. Emma helped me map out Logan's behavior. He always gets more aggressive before big family events, she warned. And Mother's surprise visits, those are reconnaissance missions. Almost ready, Frances said one evening, reviewing our growing arsenal of evidence. Just remember, act normal. Let them think they're winning. So I played my part. I smiled at Eleanor's barbed comments. I accepted Logan's corrections. I attended every Barrett family function, all while the silent storm of truth gathered strength. Then Emma handed me the final piece, old family videos. They showed Eleanor systematically breaking her own mother-in-law years ago, using the same tactics. Be careful, Emma warned. They're starting to suspect something. Mother mentioned having Richard's friends at the DA's office look into your past. I squeezed her hand. Everything's in place. Soon we'll both be free. That night, as I watched Logan sleep, I felt no remorse. The woman they tried to break was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, someone ready to strike back. The annual Barrett family retreat was mandatory, darling, Logan announced one morning. 3 days of family bonding at the lake house. Of course, I said with a practiced smile, hiding the thrill of knowing these would be his last words to me. The moment his car disappeared, our plan launched into action. Emma arrived with a moving truck while Frances coordinated with the security team we'd hired. The New York apartment is ready, Frances confirmed, helping me pack essentials. Alex's team expecting you by Monday. My life was extracted from the Barrett mansion in a matter of hours. I left behind only a single envelope on Logan's desk, divorce papers and a flash drive containing some of the evidence. The storm broke exactly as planned. Eleanor's frantic calls came first, followed by Richard's threats, but they had no idea what was about to hit them. Lisa, Logan's ex, was the first domino to fall. Eleanor's manipulations had finally pushed her over the edge. She went public with everything, the arranged meetings, the plots to sabotage their relationship, the years of Barrett family interference. I can't believe they're still doing this, Lisa told the social columnist at their Precious Country Club newsletter. They destroyed my life, just like they tried to destroy Danielle's. Richard's attempt to silence me backfired spectacularly. When he tried using his judicial connections to threaten my new position, our evidence of his abuse of power went public. Former clerks and employees came forward, each with their own Barrett horror story. Logan's company received an anonymous package detailing his pattern of domestic control and harassment. Already embroiled in a gender discrimination lawsuit, the board couldn't distance themselves fast enough. We do not tolerate any form of harassment or abuse, the company announced as Logan cleared out his office, his reputation in tatters. 1 year later, I stood in my New York penthouse, celebrating the launch of my latest successful campaign with the people who had helped me escape. To Danielle Williams, Alex said, raising his glass, our new global marketing director. Emma, finally free and thriving in Seattle's tech scene, joined virtually. You should see Mother's face every time another social invitation gets lost in the mail, she laughed. Then came the call I'd been expecting, Logan. Now living with his disgraced parents, he had lost everything. His voice was raw, almost desperate. Please, Danielle. I understand now. Mother and father, they controlled everything. I'm in therapy. I've changed. Just give me another chance. I let his words wash over me, the memory of that night at the Barrett dinner table flashing in my mind, his hand forcing me to kneel, his voice echoing with his parents' disdain. No, Logan. You had your chance to be better, to stand up to them, to protect me. Instead, you chose to become them. But I love you, he pleaded. Goodbye, Logan. Don't contact me again. As I hung up, Francis squeezed my hand. You okay? Never better, I said, smiling. Some people think revenge is about making others suffer, but I've learned the truth. The best revenge is living well, succeeding, and ensuring those who hurt you can never harm anyone else again. To living well, Alex said, raising his glass. To freedom, Emma added from the screen. And to justice, Francis concluded. The story has come to an end, but now I have a question for you. What would you have done in my shoes that night when Logan demanded I kneel and apologize to his parents? Would you have refused and faced the consequences immediately, or would you have played along until you could plan a safe escape like I did? There's no easy answer when you're trapped in an abusive relationship. Your safety has to come first, but your dignity is always on the line. Share your thoughts in the comments below. If my story resonated with you, or you know someone who needs to hear it, please like and subscribe. Together, we can reach more people who might be silently facing similar situations. Sometimes knowing you're not alone is the first step toward freedom. Thanks for staying until the end of my story. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next one. Stay strong. Hi, everyone. I'm Helen Tyler, 33 years old and one of the top real estate agents in Boston, a title I earned through sheer determination after growing up with almost nothing. But this story isn't about my success. It's about how success can make you a target. Helen, you've truly outdone yourself with this house, my best friend Maria said, sipping her coffee as we sat on my freshly furnished porch. Thanks, Maria. 3 years of saving every commission and enduring that tiny studio apartment finally paid off. I smiled proudly, though the shadow of my mother-in-law's disdain hung over me. Of course, according to Andrea, this house is quaint, not quite up to what her precious son deserves. Maria rolled her eyes dramatically. Speaking of the devil's favorite pediatrician, how's married life treating you? Jack is wonderful when his mother isn't pulling his strings, I admitted. Just yesterday. Helen, darling. Andrea's voice cut through the air like nails on a chalkboard as she waltzed up my driveway uninvited. Andrea. I greeted her stiffly, inwardly cringing. Before I could say more, Jack's voice followed hers. Mom, what are you doing here? He called out, walking up from the driveway, still in his scrubs. Andrea clasped her hands as if she'd just spotted a celebrity. Oh, Jack, sweetheart. Your father and I were just talking about you over lunch. He agrees. You're working far too hard at that public hospital. My friend Margaret's private practice is hiring. You'd make such a better impression there. Jack sighed. Mom, we've been over this. I love my job. I'm not switching. But darling. Eleanor, there you are. Patricia, Andrea's equally insufferable sister, barged through my still open front door. You won't believe what Margaret told me about Helen's old neighborhood. She gave me a condescending smile. Speaking of family, Robert and I are hosting Sunday dinner. Helen, dear, try to dress appropriately this time. I glanced at Jack, whose expression crumbled under the weight of yet another confrontation. Years of Andrea's emotional manipulation had worn him down. Actually, I said firmly, we already have plans. But it's family dinner. Andrea gasped. Jack hasn't missed one, not even when he had the flu last year. Remember how I nursed you back to health, sweetheart? Mom, Jack began, but I cut him off. It's fine, Jack. This was my life now, a revolving door of Wilson family drama, with my husband caught in the crossfire and my home turned into their personal gathering spot. Little did I know, though, that Andrea's antics were only beginning. The next escalation came over a mahogany dining table at Andrea's house. She had summoned me under the guise of an important birthday discussion. Helen, dear, Andrea began, clasping her perfectly manicured hands. You clearly don't understand Wilson family traditions. For milestone birthdays, we give substantial gifts. When Robert turned 60, his brother gave him his beach house. I frowned. This is my house, bought with my own money, before I even met Jack. Exactly, Andrea said with a syrupy smile. That's why it would make such a meaningful gesture. Show us you're truly committed to becoming a Wilson. I stared at her in disbelief and without a word, discreetly started recording the conversation on my phone. Let me get this straight. You're banning me from your birthday celebration unless I sign over my house to you. Don't be so dramatic, Andrea replied. I'm simply suggesting that if you want to be included in family traditions, you need to demonstrate proper family values. My phone buzzed. A text from Maria. You won't believe what I just heard at the country club. Your NIL's been showing some decorator around your house. Who's Amanda Phillips? I asked Andrea, watching her expression. Andrea blinked, feigning innocence. I don't know who that is. Really? Because she's telling everyone she's redesigning my house after your birthday. Well, Andrea said with a dismissive shrug, I naturally assumed you'd want to give me something special. At that moment, Jack walked into the dining room. Mom, what's going on? Helen looks upset. Oh, honey, I was just explaining our family tradition to your wife, Andrea cooed. She seems resistant to embracing it. What tradition? Jack asked, his brow furrowing. Your mother wants me to sign over our house as her birthday gift, I said evenly. Jack froze. Mom, that's insane. Jack Wilson. Andrea's voice rose, sharp with indignation. After everything I've sacrificed for you, this is exactly what I warned everyone about. Andrea's voice climbed to a shrill pitch, her eyes blazing with righteous indignation. She's turned you against your own mother, Jack. Just like she trapped you with that house in the first place. Trapped him? I snapped, my voice trembling with restrained fury. What are you even talking about, Andrea? Oh, don't play innocent, she sneered. Everyone knows you bought that house to lure my son into marriage. Poor Jack was too naive to see through your gold-digging scheme. My hands clenched into fists. I bought that house years before I even met Jack. I have the paperwork to prove it. Jack stepped forward, his voice tight with disbelief. Mom, how could you say that? Helen worked hard for that house. Hard work? Andrea laughed bitterly. Please, we all know about her arrangements with certain clients. Before I could respond, the front door swung open, and Maria marched in, clutching a folder. Perfect timing, she said, glaring at Andrea. Actually, Andrea, I've got some interesting documents here. Remember the Hendersons? They're saying you pulled the same stunt with them. Demanded their summer cottage for Robert's 55th birthday. And the Paddles? Their vintage car collection. Andrea's face paled. That's private family business. Just like how you bankrupted your own sister trying to get her vineyard. Maria added coldly. Patricia told me everything. Jack turned to his mother, his expression devastated. Mom, is this true? Jack, darling, Andrea said, her tone turning saccharine. You don't understand. Everything I do is for this family's reputation. Helen simply isn't good enough for you. I mean, look at her background. Jack's jaw tightened. The only thing not good enough here is your behavior, he said quietly. We're leaving. And Mom, don't bother sending that birthday invitation. As we walked out, Andrea's voice echoed behind us. You'll regret this, Helen. Nobody refuses Andrea Wilson. Nobody. Little did she know, I had recorded the entire conversation. The next day, I met Patricia over coffee. Her face went pale as I played the recording. This is exactly what she did to Claire, Patricia said, her voice trembling. Jack's college girlfriend. Andrea demanded her family's lakeside cabin as a family gift. When they refused, what happened? I asked. Andrea destroyed her, Patricia whispered. She spread rumors. Pregnancy scams, drugs. Claire's family had to move away. I stayed quiet then, not anymore. My phone buzzed with another message, this one from Robert's investment advisor. Mrs. Tyler, we need to discuss concerning transactions from your in-laws' accounts. Eleanor's been stealing from Robert's retirement fund, I told Patricia, scanning the texts. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Gambling debts. Patricia's hand shook as she pulled out her phone. There's more. Andrea convinced Robert to sign these documents last month. Look at the signature. I squinted. That's Jack's signature. But he never. She forged it, Patricia said grimly. Just like she forged Claire's signature years ago. I found a whole folder. Jack's voice cracked behind us. I just got the strangest call from Atlantic City, a casino's collection department. He looked shaken. I took his hand. Sit down, Jack. There's something you need to see. We spent hours going through the evidence, the forged signatures, the drained accounts, the sabotaged business deals, the gambling debts. As Andrea's web of lies unraveled, I watched decades of manipulation click into place in Jack's mind. She's been calling my hospital too, he said quietly, telling him I'm planning to quit. They almost reassigned my position. Patricia touched his arm gently. Jack, there's something else you need to know about Claire. As she told him everything, the weight of Andrea's betrayals crushed Jack's resolve. His shoulders sagged under the weight of it all, but his eyes burned with newfound clarity. Meanwhile, Andrea's reign of terror was beginning to implode. At the country club's monthly meeting, her tirade against me was interrupted by a stern voice. Mrs. Wilson, we need to discuss your outstanding gambling markers and these bounced checks. That night, Robert called, his voice hollow. Helen, did you know about the retirement account? I just found out, I said softly. 30 years of savings, he whispered. She said she was investing in real estate. Real estate, Jack said bitterly, glancing at the documents strewn across our kitchen table. Mom doesn't know anything about, oh God, the house demands. That's what this was all about, I said, the realization hitting me like a tidal wave. She needed collateral for her gambling debts. Patricia nodded grimly. She's underwater with some very dangerous people. Later that night, Robert's voice was firm over the phone. I've called a family meeting tomorrow. Andrea needs to face what she's done. When the call ended, Jack pulled me into his arms. I'm so sorry, Helen. All these years, I never saw it. We'll get through this, I assured him. Yes, we will. Without her. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Andrea. You'll pay for this, Helen. I made Jack who he is. He's nothing without me. Nothing. But her threats were hollow now. The truth was out, and her meticulously constructed world was crumbling. In the lawyer's office the next day, Robert's voice was steady but heavy with emotion. The papers are signed. After 35 years, I never thought it would end like this. You left me no choice. Andrea screeched, her voice raw with desperation. If Helen hadn't turned everyone against me. You stole my retirement, Andrea. Robert interrupted coldly. You forged our son's signature. The gambling, the lies. At that moment, a burly man appeared in the doorway. About Miss Wilson's markers at Golden Sands Casino. I'm not responsible for her debts, Robert said, his tone final. We're divorced now. Weeks later, Maria sent me a text. Just drove past Andrea's new place. You won't believe it, she's in that tiny complex by the highway. Jack returned from his therapy session that evening, looking lighter than I'd seen him in years. Dr. Stevens helped me understand so much about my childhood, the manipulation, the guilt trips. I can't believe I let her control me for so long. He smiled softly. Dad called. She tried to crash Margaret's garden party. They had to escort her out. Apparently, she was screaming about how everyone betrayed her. Meanwhile, my real estate business was thriving without Andrea sabotaging deals behind the scenes. 3 bids had come in for my newest development that week alone. Months passed. My empire grew stronger, and my confidence soared. I even bought the building Andrea was evicted from. Karma, as they say, works in mysterious ways. The holidays arrived, and our annual party was in full swing. Friends, family, and laughter filled our home. Through the window, I spotted a familiar figure standing in the snow watching. Andrea, alone. Inside, Robert, now looking years younger since the divorce, raised his glass. To family, the real kind. To consequences, Maria added with a smirk. The next morning, a gold embossed envelope arrived. Andrea's rescheduled birthday party invitation. The irony was delicious. I took a red marker, wrote return to sender in bold letters, and added a sticky note. Unlike houses, some gifts are easy to return. Through my office window, I watched the mail carrier pick it up. Somewhere across town, in a dingy apartment with a view of the highway, Andrea Wilson would receive one final reminder. She had no power here anymore. Not over my house. Not over my marriage. Not over my life. My phone buzzed. A new client referral. Life was good. And success, I realized, truly is the best revenge. While Andrea sat alone in her small apartment, surrounded by gambling debts and burned bridges, I stood in the home I built with my loving husband, a thriving business, and a chosen family that stood by me through it all. Sometimes prom doesn't just knock, it takes away your country club membership and replaces it with a view of the freeway.